This short story is No God West of Hayes, written and narrated by Eric B. Ruark, and originally published by Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine.
There is no law west of Kansas City, and no God west of Hayes. Scribner's Monthly, Volume 8, July, 1874. August, 1871. 18 years old and on the run again. Little Arkansas climbed off his horse. Using his fist, he rounded the crown of his hat, then poured half of his canteen into it. He held the hat under the horse's muzzle and allowed the animal to drink. After the horse had sucked it dry, Little Arkansas reformed the crown and placed it back on his head. Then he checked the horse's hooves. If Hickok were following him, he could not afford for his horse to go lame. Little Arkansas had no doubt that Wild Bill was on his trail, not because he had killed Charles Cougar for snoring, but because he had given Hickok his word to stay out of trouble while in Abilene, which he did for the most part. Hell, he had even gone to the circus with Wild Bill to see Miss Agnes Lake perform. Little Arkansas smiled, remembering how taken his mentor seemed to be with the beautiful equestrienne. No, Hickok could forgive him the accidental killing, but he would never forgive him for breaking his word. Little Arkansas cursed his luck. It was his own damn fault. He should never have gotten into that card game. He should never have gotten that drunk. He should never have shot indiscriminately through the hotel room wall to wake Cougar up. How was he to know that Charlie's bed was against their shared wall? It was not like he meant to put a ball through the man's head. He had nothing against him except for the snoring. But damn, that man could snore. The young man remounted and checked the skyline behind him. Hickok was too good a plainsman to get spotted that easily, but there was always the chance that Wild Bill would make a mistake. Granted, a cow jumping over the moon was more likely, but Little Arkansas could always hope. So far, considering the options, he had been more than lucky. He had had to jump out of the hotel window wearing nothing but his union suit. Before defenestrating himself, he had had the presence of mind to grab his vest to which his holsters were attached. And then he had been lucky enough to find an unattended horse and wagon tied up behind the hotel. Borrowing it was his only option for a quick getaway. Since he had sent it back with Tom Carson and Ben Davis, he didn't exactly consider it stealing. And so far, his decision to head down the Chisholm Trail had worked out to his advantage, but he knew that he couldn't count on luck with a man like Hickok on his trail. He had thought his luck had run out about the same time his horse did, 35 miles south of Abilene. He had run the horse to virtual exhaustion, and sitting there, a lone dot in the vastness of the prairie, Little Arkansas could only hope that the horse would revive before any posse could catch up with him. Then he saw those two specks come over the horizon to the south. Little Arkansas quickly checked the loads in his pistols. The young man favored the Colt Army 1861 revolver. He carried two nestled in holsters sewn to his vest, which allowed him the cross-body cavalry draw, a motion he considered faster than the hip draw. Hickok had shown him a couple of tricks along those lines, which managed to increase his speed, making him almost as fast as the legendary gunman himself. Not wanting to shoot himself in the side, he never kept a loaded chamber under the hammer. Then there was the ball that went through Charlie's head. Since he hadn't been able to grab his possibles bag and reload, he was limited to only 9 shots. Not many balls to carry him through country frequented by all kinds of outlaws, Kiowa, Comanche, Sioux, and now 2 strangers approaching him from the south. But his luck held. It wasn't long before he recognized 2 of Hickok's deputies, Tom Carson and Benjamin Franklin Davis, the former slave owner and the former slave who made a formidable pair on the streets of Abilene. Since they were coming up from the south, there was no way they could have heard of his previous night's trouble. Little Arkansas took the trigger guards off his revolvers and waited for Hickok's men to approach. He would have to think of an excuse as to why he was in his underwear. Fortunately, Tom Carson thought of it for him. "Little Arkansas, are you not a sight?" Tom said, riding up even with the wagon seat and pulling his horse to a stop. The boy watched as the deputy leaned forward and rested his gun arm on the saddle horn. "Sitting there in your night clothes with the blown horse?" He turned to Ben Davis. "Looks like this young man is running from some angry husband or some farmer what's got him a pretty daughter." The deputies laughed. "Well, Tom, my old papa used to preach, 'Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife.' He used to say that it could only lead to trouble." "Well, sure looks like you're in a whole lot of trouble," Ben Davis said. "That I am," Little Arkansas said, "but not for the reason you think." Little Arkansas crossed his arms and deliberately drew his pistols and pointed them at the men. "So, if you would be so kind as to drop your gun belts to the ground and step off your horses opposite them, you will be doing me a great kindness." The 2 deputies looked at each other. Tom Carson sat up and dropped his gun arm to his side. "Tom," Little Arkansas said in his most deliberately calm voice, "I would not be doing that. You've seen me shoot with Marshal Hickok."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?